Relationships, next pillar. This is probably, finances was meh, and relationship is probably like my biggest issue, I guess, overall. And I think because during my entire time in Arizona, a lot of it was just put entirely on the back burner, meaning dating, friendships, even family to some extent, which is like weird because like I was living with my parents for a good amount of time, so it was like still maintaining a connection but not too in depth. But like that's probably the one pillar that I find the weirdest and the shakiest. And part of it I think is just because it is normal to feel such anxiety and not know what type of relationships and things you want going forward when you literally uprooted and moved your life and there is very little to no one around you. And so personal policies on relationships has been very, very interesting, especially when it comes to paganism and dating as a pagan witch. Like that's very a whole nother level. And friendships, even being a pagan witch and all that stuff. Because what I realized is with having my spirituality and so many other things is how important and integral it is that I don't have to hide that or be ashamed of it in any way, shape, or form, which is interesting in the like the anxiety that comes up from it as I go on dates and I worry about things. And you know, even with friendships, like just having someone over to my house is very like there's a lot of pagan imagery that I put up, a lot of pagan art in my house. There's my altar space, which I refuse to put away or change. I'm not taking my rings off. I'm not changing a lot of these things at all. And that comes down to the fact that I don't want to hide that aspect of myself. I want to be proud of that aspect of myself. Personal policy number one is being authentic with who I am. And if someone does not like it, then you're not meant to be in my life, period. And it's interesting how I can still find myself almost making concessions, like being like, well, maybe if I just not tell them yet, that's something that's a later thing. Later. No later. This is my life. This is who I am. I shouldn't have anxiety over my faith. If you can't accept it, that's your business, that's not mine. And then beyond it with relationships too is for a while it was such like a quantity thing because I felt like I had zero, and it feels like I had let a lot of really good friendships go so much to the wayside and I didn't know what to do or how to contact people or how to like, you know, just keep in touch. My putting forth of effort and keeping like constant, like must always be hanging out, must always be, you know, experiencing things, especially because like experiences with people was a big thing of my depth year. I was forcing myself always to be in contact with people in some way, shape, or form, which in a lot of ways is good because I was craving some sort of connection. And we are communal beings. Like we can't, as introverted and lonely and weird as society has gotten, we still need other people, and other people aren't something to shy away from all of the time. That being said, I definitely went into overdrive with it. I spent too much time worrying about other people. I spent too much time focusing on how often I was interacting with others. I've spent way too much time concerned about just the quantity of interactions, just trying to have another and another and another and another. It was the quality of those interactions. It was interaction for interaction's sake, you know? No. I want solid, deep, striving connections. That's what I want. So the ones that I've made already, I want to put more effort towards. Make sure I'm maintaining them, contacting them, you know, staying in touch. The old friendships I love and I miss, again, staying in contact with them, also being honest and open and saying things like, if they don't know I'm pagan, then, you know, mention things like, what are you doing today? It's like, oh, well, it's the full moon, I'm having a ritual by myself. Or if I'm going on a date, being very authentic about on my dating profile or wearing my rings or whatever else, just that's what I am. And then beyond that, I also noticed that with this new stage of life in this new place, that there are some new boundaries that had to come into place, which are very interesting. And a lot of it just comes with the idea that maybe some of the things I thought were necessary when someone was close to me don't have to be necessary to maintain a close, steady relationship. And I think it also then puts a lot of the anxiety or just the overthinking, I guess, in general, of someone getting close to me away, because I'm like, oh, you know, it's not mutually exclusive. I don't have to do this thing for you in order for us to be close, because doing that thing makes me uncomfortable. And certain things is just staying in my apartment, like, you know, having my private space and not letting people into my private space all the time. It's funny how like so pushbacky I get about anyone even coming into my space because it's mine, and I don't feel like sharing it with other people because it feels very precious. And it's funny how the minute anyone comes into my space, friends, family, parents, romantic inclinations, any of that, I'm immediately like, you're touching shit, you're moving your energy, it's just and so maybe like my apartment, especially because it's small, it's a studio, it ain't that big, is just for me, and that's okay. And like I can have in-depth fun conversations and connect with people by going out to a bar or a cafe and having a conversation with people. I don't have to have those in-depth conversations in my house. I don't have to have family or close friends stay at my place. There are hotels for a reason, and if it's too much for me, then I can do that, and that's really, really great. The other thing I think, which is hard to admit and kind of contradicts with a lot of different things that I think about and what worries me and all that stuff, is how important romance is to me. And sometimes that can be hard to admit because some part of caring about a romantic relationship is in some ways, I think, deemed at some point in my childhood or adolescence, what have you, I got the idea that a girl who is focused on romance, on dating, on finding a partner is shallow, is vapid, has nothing really to contribute to society. And in some ways that has reflected horribly, and in some ways very well, into the fact that I focus a lot on my independence, on remaining okay and finding myself while being alone. And now I have been alone, in not in a serious relationship, by that I mean for a very, very, very long time. It has been a significant amount. My last semi-serious and like was getting kind of serious and it ended relationship was over a year and a half ago, and the one before that was years before that. I've had long gaps of time where I've been by myself with no one serious. There are long patches of times where I don't even freaking go on dates because it's too much. I've been by myself, really alone romantically, for a good section of my life, and that has helped me in a lot of ways to figure out who I am, what really makes me happy. That has allowed me to reassess past relationships and go, oh wow, I really let that take over my life. And that's all important. And also realizing, what do I believe? What do I want in a partner? What do I think envelops a true emotional, spiritual, romantic connection? What do I really value? It's great. But wanting it is not bad, and having that be a priority in my life is also not bad. And going about it in the way that I feel I naturally have to go about it is also not quote unquote bad. And it's also allowed me to realize that it is actually a perfectly valid, fulfilling thing to put high amount of priority and value in finding and then maintaining a partnership on a romantic sense. And sometimes it's like, of course that is, but for such a long period of my time I realized that I wouldn't talk about romance, or I wouldn't talk about wanting to find a partner or whatever, because I thought I was all the things I listed earlier, shallow, vapid, whatever, you know, like that's all girls care about. That is all basic bitch, whiny, needy, all the horrible basic stereotypes of shit, right? That's all that is. And I didn't want that. I didn't want to be labeled as that. And a lot of the labels and things I've kind of just, I'm coming to a point where I'm like, I don't really give a fuck whether people label me in some respects. You know, if you don't like the way that I practice my spirituality, then that's, go practice your own. You don't like the way that I arrange my apartment, then cool, go do your own. You don't like the way that I'm handling my finances and doing these things, fine, this is what's worked best for me. And when it comes to my romantic relationships, I get determined that, yeah, they're important to me and worth pursuing. It's something I really, really want, and I hope I get to find that hopeful, great connection with someone soon. Neighbors. And when it comes to family and friendships and all that stuff, it's also interesting to remember that as I'm evolving, as I'm coming into a whole new stage of my life, in a lot of ways it does feel like there's this huge like restart and reset, this rebuilding of a foundation is just making way for a whole new thing. So that means I get to, in a way, rewrite the rules of how I handle relationships. If someone doesn't want to follow in with those or respect those boundaries, then they can get out because I don't have to maintain that anymore. And it's funny too how when I think of personal policies of my apartment being my sacred me space, and that actually then gives me a lot of leeway and free time to then maybe text people back more, or can, you know, just speak out and reach out to people more, or spend more quality time with the people I really do care about and really hope to cultivate a really awesome relationship with people, and worry less about feeling awkward or like I'm bugging people all the time, or that I'm not worthy of having a nice, in-depth, solid, great friendship, romantic relationship, or familial relationship with somebody. Instead, it's just, this is how I operate within my connecting with other people. This is what feels good to me right now. And that might change the evolution of how I operate my relationships. I might be a little more independent. I might be a little slightly codependent. I might, you know, realize I can rely more on people, and that's all fine. Yeah, that's kind of how I'm approaching the relationship pillar. Probably the wobbliest of the pillars. Like I said earlier, it's difficult for me to take it on and be like, yes, no, that's the thing that's going on, that's cool. And in a lot of ways, even I think it's just accepting that one of my personal policies is that I can allow myself to change these rules at any point in time, because it's still, in a lot of ways, very new to me, figuring out that, oh, I want how I operate within my relationships with the people to change probably a little more drastically than I'm even thinking. So very interesting to explore how I approach all this stuff. Anyway, the last video of the series that will come out tomorrow is creativity, which is another kind of more of a shadowy thing. So that'll be fun to pull back. I hope you guys are enjoying this as I'm talking about how I'm kind of rebuilding foundations and fridge and all that stuff. So anyway, I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.